What if the way you've been telling your life story reveals the secret to what is holding you back? Stories play an integral part in how we see not only ourselves, but the whole world. Stories are more than just an important part of communication. They also reveal hidden aspects of our inner talk, which can either support us or end up holding us back from the very things we want most in life, without us even realizing it. Join author, mindset coach, and award-winning singer-songwriter Carrie Rowan on her show, Look for the Good, every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. when she shares nuggets of wisdom from her internationally best-selling book, Tell a New Story, 5 Simple Steps to Release Your Negative Stories and Bring Joy to Your Life. Carrie's powerful stories and compelling guests will empower you to change how you look at your own life while giving you some powerful tools and tips you can use every day to help you feel better and move yourself closer to the life you've been longing to live.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Look for the Good. I'm your host, Carrie Rowan, mindset strategist and life coach, and I love sharing nuggets of wisdom about the stories we tell each other, and more importantly, the ones we quietly tell ourselves. And you can join me and my special guests as we share our personal stories of strength and triumph every week here on Green Vision 7 Radio Network. You can listen online on your mobile device, in your car, or ask Alexa to play Dream Vision 7 Radio. And you can tune in every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern Time to get real stories and tips on how to turn your story and your life around. And evolve with us as we unite humankind with universal love. Hello, everybody, and welcome so much to the show. I'm so excited I have Tara sitting in the wings. Hello, Tara.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Hello, Carrie.
I'm so excited, and we're going to have a great show today. And we're going to talk about some of those quiet little stories that I mentioned, right? We're going to talk about those sort of insidious ones, I like to call them, those disempowering ones, those ones that we say to ourselves that are filled with doubt, that make us stop in our tracks, that make us stay in that little comfort zone, and unable to step out and do the things that we're meant to do. And so I love talking about this. You guys know that this is my jam, talking about stories. And this is going to be a really, really powerful episode. So strap yourselves in, everybody, because Tara has got some unbelievable stuff to share with us today. Before we get started, let me officially introduce you. And it'll be a moment where you can shine, because a lot of people don't love when they have to hear their stuff read by somebody else. But I think it's really great. All the things you've done. This could be about 5 more paragraphs long here, but we're just going to keep it short today. So Tara LaFon Gooch is a CEO, branding expert, TEDx speaker, and international best-selling author, dedicated to transforming lives and helping people live confidently. She uses her expertise to empower individuals and businesses to achieve their highest potential. She's really understating how amazing she is. And let me just show you, dun, 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 dun. I have her book right here, How to Grasp Confidence and Own Your Power. She is a superstar. Welcome, Tara.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Carrie.
Absolutely. And I just love your whole story about how you got started in this work and I feel like this is so true. Tell me if you think so too. But a lot of entrepreneurs that I know start their businesses out of pain or out of something that they had to get over themselves. Would you agree with that?
I totally agree. Well, it's easiest to identify with your target customer when you are, in fact, the target customer. You're serving yourself, right?
Right? It's so true. Like when I first came out with my book, I would say to people, hey, it's the old adage that we teach that which we most need to learn, right?
I
So
love that.
yeah, it's so true. And like we write our books, yes, we're writing the books for our readers, of course, with them in mind always. But there's also an element of it that we're writing it for ourselves. It becomes a very cathartic experience.
That's what it was like for me. It was very cathartic, and I actually was not expecting that outcome. When I set to write my book, I actually didn't know I was writing a book. It was the weekend after Valentine's Day, and I sat on my couch with my laptop, and I told my husband, I said, I just need to get something out of my head.
Hmm.
11,000 words later, that weekend,
No
And
way.
yes, and it was
Wow.
very cathartic, and I did not expect that. Who could?
Wow. Right? You couldn't plan for that.
No.
Who's going to wake up and say, I think I'll write a book this weekend?
Right?
Nobody really. But I
No.
love that. Really. That's how it unfolded. That's amazing.
Yeah, at first I thought maybe it's just, maybe it's a blog, maybe it's something like that, but I could not stop writing.
That's
It
the
was
sign.
flow state, right?
Yeah, flow state. I'm thinking passion. I'm
Yeah.
thinking, yeah, you are at your creative peak at that moment, right? Like, and you have to get it all done. It's like when a new song floats into my head. It might just be a little gem of an idea, but you lose all sense of time, right? I could sit at the piano or with my guitar and just lose all sense of time because you're so lost in that connection that you have. You don't ever want it to end.
And it does. It feels like a direct connection.
Yeah, totally. So I love this, how to grasp confidence and own your power. I love the concept of owning your power. I mentioned to you that I wrote a song called Take It Back, and it's about taking your power back. And so I love everything that you talk about. Our work is so synchronistic. I was just watching your TED Talk, and I mentioned before so many things that we feel the same about and talk about. And I love one thing I heard that was very unusual is how you phrased, instead of people saying like, I have a lack of confidence or I have low self-esteem, um, it's unconfidence. I
Mm.
love that. Unconfident. Did you catch that
Yeah.
phrase?
Yeah, because you know what? Again, I'm the same way. I've heard lack of confidence, but what if that to me says that there's still a baseline level of confidence there. There's still maybe you're just lacking a little bit. Maybe you're 80% instead of 100. But what if you're 10%? And I think a lot of people are right in that group right now, and they feel unconfident. And some people don't even remember the last time they actually felt confident, Carrie.
That's a sad state, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really sad because, when we look at young children, toddlers, their
Yeah.
confidence. Oh my gosh, they fall, they get up. They don't fall and assume that walking's not for them and they just give up. Don't, right? You can't even imagine it. It's funny to think about, right? But
Mm-hmm.
so I think, on a certain level, we're all born with the potential of confidence. And I like to think of it as like a confidence meter.
Mm.
It could be outside things like toxic work environments, bad relationships, bad friendships, bullying, workplace bullying too.
Mm.
And, all of these things kind of culminate. And then it's all about the story we tell ourselves as well and repeating these things in our mind. And then all of a sudden, we feel unconfident.
So true. There's a lot of dynamics at play here, right? That are going on between the stories, and a lot of it comes from our childhood, right? It comes from what those experiences were. Did that build our confidence? Did that make us feel a defeatist attitude? What are those beliefs that got stuck, right? Because we make our most of our beliefs before we're 7 years old, and they just get stuck. Um, and so how do we address that? How do we look back? Should we be looking back? Should we just look forward and how to make ourselves confident now? What do you recommend for people?
Well, in my TEDx talk and in my book, I break down gratitude into three foundational elements, and that's gratitude for our past, our present, and our future. So, we can look back in the rearview mirror all day long, but is that propelling us forward?
Mm,
So, one thing I recommend is to try to find something in your past that you can have gratitude for,
mm,
and to start reframing that instead of a limitation into a possibility and an expansion mindset, right? Because I didn't grow up in the best of circumstances, Carrie. In a lot of ways, I had a lot of cards stacked against me from birth on. And it wasn't easy to look back at gratitude for things that happened to me. But once I started to intentionally find the gratitude, I started to realize how I can turn those pain that experiences into a purpose to serve other people.
I love that. Turn your pain into a purpose. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, because or I've heard it say like turn your mess into your message, right? So using that, which is such a great skill, as you know, I talk about gratitude in my book. We've talked about that before. And here's the thing that I think is interesting is that I think people think that they're grateful. Like, of course, people will say, of course, I'm grateful. I used to run a gratitude seminar. Of course, I'm grateful when good things happen. Yes, I appreciate all those things. Well, hold on a second. That's not really practicing gratitude. Like you just said, the way you described it was a great definition because you have to be able to look at the things that hurt you the most, ouchie, and find a reason to feel gratitude. Like you said, okay, because of that pain, I was able to XYZ, write my book, fill in the blank, right? And so that's kind of a mindset shift for a lot of people to use gratitude more as a practice where it's very, very deliberate. That's what we mean by practicing gratitude.
Yes, this is not something you check off the box and say, well, I did my gratitude for today. It is a deep relationship. And a lot of people don't equate gratitude to, having a relationship to gratitude. They think of it again as, all right, I did my little journal today, I'm done. It's a continuous practice. It's a
Mm,
lifestyle change. It's not something you're ever actually finished with.
I love that. Yeah,
So
it reminds
important.
me of, Tony Robbins' quote. He was the first one, I think, that said, live with an attitude of gratitude, right? Way back when. Um, and so, yeah, it is. I love that. A deep relationship with gratitude. How do people get a deep relationship with gratitude? How do they start today if they want to start feeling just a little bit better every day?
Absolutely. And we can all do this every day, and we should do this every day. And it could be something simple. Start simple, right? So it, last night, for example, my 8-year-old daughter woke us up in the middle of the night and she opened up the door like a bull in a china shop. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. I am sound asleep. I could have taken an approach. Again, it's a choice. I could have said, oh my gosh, you ruined my sleep. Or I could say, I'm so grateful that I have a daughter, number one,
Mm,
that she's safe. And when she comes to me, it's for safety. She knows that I'm her safe space. And that, you know what, she's still young enough where she wants me to cuddle her.
I
And she
love that.
still enjoys that. And you can again, it's a choice. Everything is a choice, right? But gratitude is a choice as well. And sometimes we have to find the gratitude. It's not very easy in certain situations, but it's always there.
I love that. That's a great way. And it's a simple shift.
Yes.
I feel like it's developing a practice to give you the space to make the choice, right? As opposed to like a knee-jerk reaction, which is our old habit or our old pattern, our old belief, or the way we saw our parents act, right? So that becomes our knee-jerk reaction. But when we can just stop for a minute and remind ourselves that we do have a choice, I love that. And really, that's when you start to rewire your brain, right? Rewire everything that not only you're putting out to the world, but everything that's coming back to you as well.
It's a ninja move. It really
I
is.
love it.
It
I
is
love
the
that.
ninja move
It
because
is.
yeah, you take that moment of choice and you
Mm,
think like a ninja, and all of a sudden, what could have been a moment of anger or frustration turns into you finding the good in it, whatever it is. And you do that enough repeatedly, your mindset changes, your life changes, your success changes, your abundance changes,
yes.
your entire life changes.
Oh,
So
so
simple.
beautiful. Yeah, gorgeous. And let's talk about the opposite of that because here's the thing that I think not everybody understands, right? We're rewiring our brains. Why are we rewiring our brains? Because our brains are so beautifully predisposed to look for what's wrong, right? It's a
Right.
safety. You mentioned safety with your daughter. It's a safety mechanism. It wants to keep us safe. Ooh, don't do that. Oh, remember last time you did that? What happened? Oh, you're going to fall flat on your face. Whatever it is, it's trying to keep us in our comfort zone and safe. So because we're all wired the same, that's why we can all stand here and say, "Oh, I feel like that. You feel like that. We all feel like that." Yeah, low self-esteem, shame, whatever the stuff is. So that's why gratitude, tell us a little bit how gratitude can rewire that.
Yes. Well, it does rewire our brains, right? So, you know what's interesting? There's been many scientific studies about how gratitude rewires our brains. It, produces the feel-good chemicals, serotonin, um, and pardon me,
Oxytocin.
oxytocin. I was about. Thank
You
you. But yes, it does. It produces chemicals in
uh-huh.
our brain. So that is a physical reaction. But what's all interesting as well? I mean, there's plenty of scientific studies that show that, for example, rats in a cage. You take rats in a cage and rats that have been shocked to that if they leave the cage, they get shocked. It's interesting, the next generation of rats, there's no door on the cage. They don't leave the
Isn't that
cage.
amazing? Wow.
So between all of us, right, and all of our past that we've experienced in our
Mhm.
lives, from childhood on, from ancestral past, and you combine your current past with the ancestral past, and what have you learned? You've learned mechanisms of safety, of survival, probably habits and patterns of limitation, of lack of self-belief. If you've been in
Mm,
poverty, in situations where your fight or flight and cortisol are high, especially in childhood, it's going to wire your brain for that activity. So in order for you to get out of what's called, the monkey mind, that, lower level thinking where you're just reacting, right, and
mhm.
responding probably negatively to your environment, gratitude actually helps rewire your brain to open new neurological pathways to make it possible for you to achieve certain things.
Mm.
And I think that is so powerful. If we look at the example with the rats in a cage, there's no door, yet they are afraid. So we need to think about this for ourselves. What door is not even in front of us, but we're so afraid to go through it? How powerful is that?
So powerful. And it also makes me think about what we're handing off to our kids
Yeah,
inadvertently, right? We don't even realize what was handed to us. I mean, like you said, you can trace that stuff back. We know that emotions get stuck in the body and they can be passed on for generations, like that fear you're talking about. So I like to think of it like that, like, oh, I don't want to pass anything down to my kids unintentionally, right? So that's powerful.
I think about that with my mom. I love my mom, but I grew up with an unconfident mom.
Mm.
She was stuck in a bad relationship. My father was an abusive person, he was alcoholic, and I never once saw my mom confident. What did you think was going to happen to me? Right? I'm only modeling behavior that I see. So if we as parents, you know, we constantly think, how can I give more and more and more to my children and make their lives better? It starts with you, mom and dad. Right? Because you're modeling that behavior for them intentionally or unintentionally, and most of the time it's unintentionally, but those little eyes are watching and they're mimicking and they're becoming.
So true. Yes. Do as I they you know they do what you do, right? That old saying about that, right?
Yep,
Um, do as I do, not as I say. They don't so much absorb the words, but boy, are they absorbing the behavior.
that's
And
right.
like, yeah, like we talked about earlier, before they're even 7 years old, they're soaking all their brains are like a sponge, or, it's just the brainwave mode that they're in right there. And, it's important to stop and question that, right? Like, I don't know about you, but I don't want some beliefs that I made up when I was 7 years old because I was scared about something. I mean, would you let a 7-year-old drive the car? No, but we're still letting a 7-year-old manage our lives and drive the direction of our lives.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's so poignant. I look back at my early childhood days. I was this super, super shy kid. I would literally hide behind my mom's leg, you know.
Mhm.
I couldn't talk to anyone, and in school, it really held me back. Terrified to speak, absolutely terrified to speak. And that behavior of fear, that pattern of fear, was like marinating, and it just kept marinating and kept reinforcing those negative beliefs and those self-limiting things that made me honestly believe that no, I'm not worthy of love. I'm not worthy to be seen or heard. No one cares what I have to say. Well, how do you think that's going to set me up as an adult? Do you think
Mhm.
I'm going to make as much money as I could? It doesn't matter what my IQ is or how smart I actually am. I didn't think that of myself, so why would I try? It's so powerful.
So powerful. And so many people feel that same way, right?
Yeah.
And we're constantly reinforcing those same beliefs because, again, that's how the mind is structured, right? When you tell it something's important to your brain, that little RAS, reticular activating system, you tell it it's important. So now it's looking for it. Oh, if you say that to yourself all the time, I'm not very smart, well, it's going to keep giving you examples of why you're not very smart because that's a strong belief that's embedded in there. And this is where I think a lot of people get tripped up. Well, I'm not smart. Look, see here, look, I did this or I failed this test, or and they right, and they start giving you the proof, fighting for their limitation of why that is true. But what they don't know is that you can flip that switch, right?
Yes. Yes.
That's the beauty.
And part of it is facing some of those fears that, approaching the cage, testing it out a little bit, seeing what is possible. And again, for me, it was an intense fear of public speaking. But once I realized there was no door to the cage and stepped on stage for the first time, my life completely changed. And that's possible for anyone.
I love that. Hold tight, everybody. We're going to break on that beautiful note you just left us with. We'll be right back with Tara. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Look for the Good. I'm here with Tara LaFon Gooch, and we are having an unbelievable conversation. She just left us with this beautiful phrase. Let's talk about, because I just saw you on the TEDx stage when I was watching your talk. How did you bridge that gap? How did you go from that girl who was afraid to get on stage to finally realizing that there was no door on the cage? How did you do that? Everybody wants to know that.
Well, I had to take action, right? So no amount of thought replaces action. I wish it did. And I wish I could say, you know what, if you think all day, it'll get better. But it actually doesn't, right? There's no words for thinking that I know of, right? Not at least right now.
Right.
So you have to put in the action. The thing I did, so it was August of 2022. I said, I think I need to learn about public speaking.
Mm.
I started reaching out to some friends on LinkedIn, new people that were coming into my feed who were professional speakers. And one gentleman, I DM'd him and said, I love your content. I think your work is important. This is something I'm interested in as well, but I have no idea what I'm doing, right? Well, he took me under his wing,
Oh,
and then it was January of 2023. So not that long ago, folks.
wow.
January of 2023, he calls me. This was literally January 2nd, so right after New Year's. And he says, there's a keynote in Washington, D.C., and one of the speakers threw his back out and couldn't make the plane. You don't live too far. Would you want to deliver a keynote?
Oh.
I had never done that before.
Wow.
And I said, okay, what am I going to be talking about? He said, I don't know what you always talk about, right? LinkedIn, personal branding, just start there. At the time, that's what I was doing when I was a new entrepreneur. So, okay, I had about 20 minutes to prepare. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to teach, educate, and then at the end, I'm going to share a little bit about my story. So I taught, I educated. And as I was on stage, and by the way, I was terrified and nervous. I would literally cried in the bathroom before I went up, cried my eyes out,
Wow.
ugly cry, not like pretty, like ugly, lots of tears. But
Wow.
I went on stage and I saw the body language change. I saw people leaning in. I saw people taking notes. I saw lots of eye contact, lots of engagement. And I said to myself, that was the first time I ever realized I am a subject matter expert. Never thought about it before. That was always for somebody else,
Mhm.
right? And at the end of the speech, I wanted to leave with a really, because no one knew me, by the way. No one except for the gentleman who called me. So one person in this whole audience knew who I was. I shared a little bit about my story. And I told the audience, I said, the reason I'm here today, because no one knew who I was, the reason I'm here is because of my ability to build relationships on LinkedIn. So it was that same gentleman I reached out to in August about public speaking who invited me to this. And I said, it's because of my ability to build relationships with people online, but I'm also here today because not that long ago, I chose not to end my life. You could have heard a pin
You
drop.
just gave me a chill.
That was the real reason I was there that day. And why was I ever thinking that? Because people look at me right now and say, that can't be possible. Well, anyone listening to this, that's how unconfident I was. I believed in myself so little that I did not believe I had a purpose and a reason for being on this earth.
Wow. That is, wow. I bet you changed lives that day.
I did. And it made me realize how powerful my story actually is. And it was a small part of my story. That segment of my talk was 2 minutes long. After I got up on stage, everyone stood up in the audience, were clapping. People ran up to me and hugged me.
Oh,
Several of them became my clients. They're still my clients. And it occurred to me too that this is speaking. It's about conveying knowledge and teaching, but it's also about storytelling and displaying of empathy. And when you can combine all of those, guess what? You're a pretty darn good speaker. And it gave me a boost of confidence that I never really had before.
wow. Full body chills, like when you're telling that story. That is amazing because you're giving the gift of showing people what's possible for them, right? Because here's where I was, the lowest of the low, and here's where I am now. Look at me, I'm standing on the stage. That just the way that whole thing unfolded is just so synchronicity, right? It's synchronicitous.
Yeah. And
Really.
1 year later, I stood on the TEDx stage.
Wow.
1 year after, literally 12 months to the week of delivering my
Wow.
first keynote speech, I was delivering an international TED Talk in England.
That's unbelievable. That's so
Can't make it
powerful.
up.
You can't make that stuff up. Most people don't have that story that's so compelling. And the coolest thing that I love about, well, I love everything that you're doing, but one of the things I love that just I had wrote it down because it was really poignant is the vulnerability that you share to share that story because I think that's where a lot of us get stuck, right? Is that
Yeah.
imposter syndrome like we talked about earlier and that I can't say that. Oh, I can't tell that the real story of what was going on in my life. But that vulnerability is what makes it so accessible to everybody because everybody gets that on some level, right?
Yeah. And it doesn't matter if the people you're telling your story to have the same story. They don't, by the way. Nobody has the exact
Right.
same story. It's the fact that you're telling a human experience. Anyone can relate to it because we've all been down. We've all been depressed at some point. We've all felt anxious at some point. Many of us have felt unconfident at points in our lives. and we've struggled. And one of the biggest lessons I've learned just as a leader myself is in order to gain trust, I have to be my most authentic version of myself. That's why people follow me. It has little to do with a title or how much money I make or anything like that. It's because they follow a mission, a passion, a purpose, and they see that it's coming through a lens of authenticity and just me. I'm not trying to be anyone else. And it's such a high vibrational state when you are just being you that
That's
people can't help but be attracted to it and respond to it. And you know what? Sometimes some people won't, and that's fine. I like to think of authenticity as an automatic filter.
mm,
You attract the people that you want to attract, and it dissuades the people that you don't want in your life anyway.
I agree. I was going to say that they're not your people anyway.
That's right.
But it's beautiful because you're giving other people permission to be them. You're giving other, by standing up so confidently and doing that, you're giving them permission to tell their story from that really deepest, authentic place. And like you said, there's nobody else that has our story quite the way that we do. Absolutely nobody. And nobody can tell it the same way that just like we can. Um, and then we bring that to our business, right? Nobody can do exactly what we do and offer what we offer in the same flavor. They might have the same titles, but truly your work is so unique to you because you've put your whole self in it. And that's the beauty of being an entrepreneur.
That's right. Absolutely. I love that. And, writing my book and sharing my whole story, that was definitely not easy.
I bet.
But I realized that if I didn't share it, I wouldn't change a life, but I also wouldn't save anyone.
Mm,
So I looked at it as an act of service that if this helped me, and it really did help me from being completely unconfident to very confident, then I knew it could help someone else. And it would almost be selfish if I didn't share that with someone.
that's a great way to look at it. And I feel like that's a lot of how, you can teach people to get over that imposter syndrome when we all feel like that. It's our responsibility to share that and share our gifts. We talked about that in our first call. And my dad used to say that all the time. When you have these gifts, these God-given gifts, it's your responsibility to share them with the world because that's why you have them, not to keep inside, but to share. And I love that, which leads me to that beautiful story that you told me about the CEO that
Mm,
contacted you, talk about saving lives. Do you want to share that story? I think they'll really love to hear that.
absolutely. So this is one story, but I have a few. CEO in Canada, shortly after my book was published, reached out to me. I remember it vividly. Um, I was at home and he messaged me on LinkedIn asking for my phone number. So normally I don't do that, but something told me to go ahead and give this gentleman my phone number.
Mhm.
So I gave him my phone number and we talked. And he said he was sitting on his dock at the lake, looking out at the water, and he had been contemplating ending his life. And he had 2 kids and a wife and company and all of these responsibilities, and he was extremely depressed. He felt like he could not go on anymore. And for whatever reason, he bought my book. And my words spoke to him, and he read my story and my openness about my struggles because I put it right in the first page and get started with the lowest point. And he said he had never thought about gratitude as a mechanism to heal. And he read my book. He didn't even finish reading my book at this time. He was only done the first like chapter or two
Wow,
when
really?
he sent me this. And he said, I don't know why I got your book, but I saw you post on LinkedIn and I bought it. And he said, I'm really glad I did because I changed my mind.
Wow, that's powerful.
Very powerful.
Wow. How did that make you feel?
It still brings up a lot of emotion because
Yeah.
how did it make me feel? Grateful, purposeful, fulfilled, like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
What you came here for.
Yeah.
So beautiful, Tara.
And
So
this is why, like we talked about in the beginning, that you can turn that pain into purpose and help others. And if in your past you have these things that you feel like are holding you back, try to find the gratitude in it, because if you can find the gratitude in it, you're going to be one step closer to finding your purpose. And that purpose is always going to be to help others.
absolutely be of service. Absolutely. That's why we do what we do. And one of the steps in my book, we both have the 5 steps, and we're going to talk about your steps, um, is just that, is the reframe, right? But
Yeah.
embedding gratitude in that. And sometimes it's really, really hard to see. I talk about the reframe, you know, the greatest reframe, which is my mom's reframe in her whole story. And it's really, really powerful to be able to take a look at something that hurt us so deeply and find an element in there that we didn't even know existed that was there for our growth. Or, you know, you can see clearly now, as I'm quoting Wayne Dyer's last book that he wrote, his memoir, the whole entire book is that. It's 52 chapters of, I can see clearly now that I needed to be fatherless or I couldn't teach
Mhm.
people about self-reliance, right? It's that kind of transformation on your own story. That's such deep work that can transform lives like it did for yours.
Yeah. It's beautiful. I love it.
You are beautiful. And hold tight, everybody. I know you're hanging on our every word here. We'll be right back with Tara. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Look for the Good. We are having an unbelievable, heartfelt, informative, authentic conversation here with Tara LaFon Gooch. And you were just sharing that story, and we all got a little teared up. Let's talk about, thank you so much, too, by the way, for sharing that. Let's talk about your 5 steps. Take us through the steps and, just give people like a little tip on how they could use it in their life today to feel better and start to erase that unconfidence.
Absolutely. Well, it starts with the foundation of gratitude, because gratitude is the law of increase. I want everybody
Mm.
to write that down and remember that it's the law of increase. It's a piggy bank. Think of it as that. So when we perform gratitude, when we think about gratitude, it's like putting a coin into the big piggy bank. When we have negative thoughts, complaining thoughts, it's like taking a coin out of the piggy bank. So it is the literal law of increase. And it's so important to start with gratitude, because if we start with gratitude, we're building a strong foundation so that we can go on to the other steps. And I think gratitude is one of those often underlooked, underappreciated things, but by incorporating it is the first thing we do. It helps set us up so that when we go to the following steps, we're equally equipped and are ready to receive. It's so important.
Mm.
So I start with gratitude, but then it's a responsibility that we have to ourselves. It's a responsibility mindset. We have to be responsible for our thoughts, our deeds, our actions, right? And not letting our past define us, not letting ourselves hold us back. We have to have a responsibility of our thoughts and our patterns of behavior. If we're constantly thinking negative things, self limiting things, what's going to happen? We're not going to experience increase and abundance in our lives.
Mm.
So we have to have a responsibility to build confidence, self belief, personal development, success, whatever it is you want. You have to have a responsibility and a true ownership mentality of it and not be a victim, but be a
Mm,
victor. Big difference.
yeah, absolutely.
And then, we talked about action as well. So again, no amount of thought replaces activity. We have to put in the work. You have to put in the steps. How do you get a toned, refined body? Well, you have to do resistance training. You have to go to the gym. You have to get your reps in. Confidence is the same way. So if you're afraid of public speaking, if you're afraid of sharing your story, if you're afraid of writing a book, start putting in little bits of action like baby steps. And you know what the thing about action is? It's cumulative and it has compounding interest.
Yes,
So you put a little bit of action in today, it pays off tomorrow. Keep going.
love that.
And then I also have sight because sight is very important for confidence building. It's important to visualize the person that you want to become. And not just visualize it in your mind, but also see it with your eyes. So, what do I mean by this? Well, if we're wearing clothes that don't make us feel good about ourselves, if we're wearing clothes that don't honor our bodies, because we're all beautiful, right? How is that going to make you feel? You're going to feel it, and every cell in your body is going to be screaming out saying, this doesn't feel good. I don't feel confident. Think it, believe it in your mind, see it, and it will become. But you also have to, have the outward appearance of somebody who is working towards building their confidence level. So if you're wearing clothes, especially ladies, that don't look good on you, you don't feel confident, get rid of them. Get rid of them.
Mm.
It's not worth it. It's not worth it. This is my permission slip to you guys to go shopping.
I was just gonna say to go shopping.
Like anybody needs permission, right?
I like that kind of permission.
Yeah. But go shopping, wear clothes that make you feel good, that you feel sexy in, that you feel confident in, that you walk into a room and you say, you know what, I look pretty good. Those are the clothes you should buy. But also visualize continually that person in your mind that you want to become. And this was a big changer for me. It wasn't just a vision board that I was doing. That's how it started. But I also created a vision board in my own mind that said,
Mm.
this is how I want to be. And I saw this lady very clearly. And I pictured her. She had heels on, shoulders back. She walked into a room. She didn't have to say one word. She commanded the room. And I said, that's who I want to be. And every single day I took action to become that person through a lens of responsibility that I would take action every day.
I love that.
Yes, and then it culminates into purpose. And what is purpose? Well, when we align with our purpose, when we align with, as you said, Carrie, our God-given gifts, those talents, those skills, those abilities that we all have,
Mm.
you start to realize how special you actually are. If you can realize how special you are, how talented and smart you are, how could you not be confident? How could you not?
Very, very powerful. And I love what you said about really following through for yourself. That responsibility piece, I feel like it's so huge. Like,
Yeah.
if you say you're going to do something, you got to follow through and do it. If you say you're going to be downstairs in your office by 8:30 every morning, no matter what, you got to do that. Why? Because again, that brain is always listening. Oh, there she goes again. She said she was going to come down to her office. She's not down here. It's 8:45. You know what I mean? That brain is always looking for the ways to pull us back into our comfort zone just when we start to get momentum. Don't you feel like that's true?
100%. And I say, honor the commitments you make. Honor the commitments you make to other people, if they're healthy. If not, of course, don't make them. But honor the commitments you make to yourself. If you say, I'm going to do this, you better do it, right? Because it's so easy to not do something. But how much, I've never, for example, gone to the gym and said, gosh, I really regret that.
I know.
Right?
It's hard getting there, but you always say, I'm so glad I did that, right?
that.
So true.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And every time you make a commitment like that to yourself and you're expressing gratitude that you did it, it reinforces the belief that what you're doing is on the right path. And guess what? You keep doing that, there's nothing that is going to stop you because this is where most people fail. They fail at the consistency level. But just like I said, it's compounded interest and it builds daily and
Mm.
you just keep compounding it. And then all of the sudden, you're honoring your commitments to yourself, you feel more confident, and you're more successful. So while I say this is 5 steps to gaining confidence, it's really 5 steps to just becoming the best version of yourself and success in general in life. You can
Amen.
apply this to all areas of life.
You really can. Absolutely. It's far reaching. But like you said, it's really it's honoring ourselves on a different level, sort of giving ourselves a little bit of an objective view of ourselves. Right? And then sticking to that, like, hey, you know what? I know I could do better. Here's what I'm gonna do. And that's the key is the following through the action, and then envisioning yourself. I love that step too, is really, really powerful. Like here I am in my office by myself. It's you and I here on camera, but I get dressed up for every single podcast that I do. Why? Because I feel better. I feel better. I go in the kitchen and maybe my kids are saying, why are you all dressed up? I've got a podcast, right? But you're just in your office. But that's okay. I'm with myself in here and then my beautiful special guest. And it's just that feeling, right? It just is that little edge that you're giving your own self with all these little things. Because like you said, it starts to accumulate. You start to feel a little bit better and a little bit better. And before you know it, you're on a TED Talk, lady.
That's right. And it can be small steps, everyone. So, don't get overwhelmed and say 5 steps, that's so much. Start with one step. Again, I always recommend starting with gratitude. But if you need, one of the things that I did when I was really developing confidence, I went through my entire closet and got rid of all things
Mm,
that didn't serve me. I started there and then I got rid of other things that didn't serve me, like bad friendships, bad relationships, right? So honestly, and it builds, and all of a sudden you get more confidence to do even bigger things and removing bigger things that don't serve you. And then you look around one day and see everything that's in your life is intentional and aligned for your greater good. And then you become absolutely unstoppable at that point.
I love that. It's like, it's also remembering, which is something that you said. How special we are. And, when I have a new client, one of the first things I do is have them create this feel good folder where they start gathering items. Maybe it's a letter where you did a great job or an email you print out. And so everything goes in this folder. But also, I think the most powerful exercise is to have them construct a list. Here's all the badass things that I've done in my life, right? Here's all my ninja moves. And it might seem small to you, but that trophy you got in school for whatever, the debate team, whatever it was, get it on the list, right? And then just even those commitments or something that you got over can go on that list. And then anytime you need to feel a little boost, you can open that folder and remind yourself and feel grateful for all those things in that folder.
I love that. Absolutely. Whatever mechanism it takes for you to understand how special you are, do it. Take one step today because I don't I don't have to know you have a purpose, because the thing about it is if you have a pulse, you have a purpose.
Mm,
So if you're ever doubting, do I have a purpose? The answer is a resounding yes. Because you're alive, you have a beating heart in your chest, lungs full of air, you have a purpose. And look back at that past that you have with absolute gratitude for the present, that you're breathing the air, that you woke up this morning because you won the lottery, right?
right.
The chances of any of us being alive right now is 1 in, I think, 400 trillion.
Yeah, I saw that stat before. That's unbelievable.
17 zeros, by the way. That's a lot of.
17, right? Can you imagine all the forces that had to come into play? I say that to my kids sometimes. How you're lucky to be here, like just trying to get a bigger picture, bring the lens back and try to take a peek at how lucky you are just to be here. Never mind, they're all hung up, we get hung up on what we've accomplished or didn't accomplish, and we're so hard on ourselves. But yeah, I love what you said too about if you have a pulse, you have a purpose.
It's really that simple.
Because we all can feel that, right? Sometimes we get so down on ourselves. And if you have a pulse, you have a purpose, my friend. Like you said, write that down and don't forget it. Put it on a sticky note right in front of you so you can see that daily. That's how good that is. Yeah, that's how good that is. So we are going to have to wrap up. As much as I am absolutely loving this conversation, tell them, where can they find your amazing book? I have a signed copy too. Ooh, this is really
I know. Aren't you lucky? How'd that happen?
First edition. Wowza. So where can they get this beautiful book?
Yeah, so that's available on Amazon. If you would like a signed copy, you can visit my website, TaraLaFonGooch.com, and I will give you a signed copy of my book. And I've got a new book coming out in 2 months as well. It's called Talk Your Way to the Top. If you are interested in learning how to become a TEDx speaker, this book teaches you how to land a TED Talk, how to write a TED Talk, and how to make it go viral. Who doesn't want that?
Ooh, I want that. I want that book. I got to get on that short list. I want a first copy. And make it go viral. That's the kicker there, right?
That's right. That's
I
right.
love that. And you can watch Tara's TED Talk. I'll put that link too in the show notes. How about that?
In the first 30 days, I had 410,000 views, which proves people want to hear this message.
Yeah, they do. People need to hear this message. And that's why I wanted you to come on the show so badly, because it's such a beautiful message. It's a powerful message. And to go from where you were to where you are now is such a beautiful example. And you're giving people permission to step into their best selves as well and be authentic. So thank you, thank you, thank you for that.
Thank you, Carrie.
It's been a joy having you on today, Tara. And remember, guys, if you want the backstory, you want to hear what goes on behind the scenes when we're getting ready, or we have our pre-show, and I might drop some really cool things that we shared that you don't hear here, sign up for my newsletter. Go to carrierowan.com and click on the podcast and sign up for my newsletter today so you can be in the know. And remember, beautiful listeners, it is never too late to live your best story. Be well.
Thanks for tuning in to Look for the Good with your host, Carrie Rowan, best-selling author and mindset coach. Join us every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. right here at Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. If you weren't able to catch an episode, no worries. Just visit our website to find all the archived episodes of Look for the Good on demand, so you don't miss a thing. And remember, it's never too late to live your best story. For additional resources or to find out about how you can work with Carrie directly, visit carrierowan.com for more details.